Continuing live coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring is being brought to you by Champion, makers of Copper Plus, America's best spark plug. And by VF Goodrich TA radios, built for you to take on the road. And by Dodge, an American revolution, a performance revolution.
Approximately 53 minutes remain in the 34th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring. I'm Ken Squire, this is Bill Adam, and we're here to bring you the action as we conclude this event, which is setting some records. One is for temperature. It's really a three-dog night. They say it's one of the coldest nights in Sebring history. And for speed in this event, as you see some of the multitudes, record crowd here today trying to warm themselves. The action on the track has been intense. The speed 2 miles an hour over the record set by the Preston Hen car a year ago. And here you see the lead car, number 5, slashing through the night, continuing to lead by some 5 laps now, Bill.
They have really done such an outstanding job. They have basically stayed out of trouble when all of their competitors around them have just run into endless problems. They really do deserve victory in this race.
Let's go to Jerry Garrett. He's standing by with this pit report.
Well, right now we're expecting the third place car, the 67 car, back in here to get this nose put on it. The problem with the nose that's on the car is that this light fitting cable is broken off and he doesn't have any lights out there. So this is an unexpected blow for the 67 cars, hoping picking up a position or two in the late going.
We have had 9 laps of caution thus far. The speed has fallen some, but it's still a record, as car number 5 has led some 134 laps of competition. We've had one serious incident. Jay Jensen, a mechanic on the Jim Downing car, was injured when a tire came off the lead car as it came down pit road. The latest report we have on Atlanta, Georgia's Jay Jensen is he is in serious but stable condition. They said he was conscious. He's been taken to the nearby hospital. There you see some of the statistics on the race. They've completed 1,200 miles since the 11:13 this morning, and the average speed is a doozy, 115.9. As this car number 5, they've untethered it once again, really turning some laps at 123, 124, 125 range in the last hour, Bill.
Well, Hans Stuck really is one of the absolute finest endurance drivers in the world. He has shown brilliance in any car he's in, and in the position that he's in right now, he is almost impossible to beat. The Lowenbrow car, which may normally be a challenger, has really run into unexpected problems. We've seen Derek Bell make a very uncharacteristic mistake and actually hit the wall, which caused them some time, and they've run into mechanical problems.
They are watching these pictures live. That's on pit road right now. Car number 14 that won the 24 Hours of Daytona this year, having problems. 3rd overall, number 67, the BF Goodrich car, has just made a quick stop, gone back on the course, and is maintaining 2nd place, 5 laps down to the leader. 44 of the 77 starters are still in competition. There you see Derek Bell, as he has been for the past several minutes, just sitting in the Porsche 962, entered by the Al Holbert Racing Team, the Lowenbrow car, and they had really hoped to have a good finish here and give Al Holbert his 3rd win in this event.
Yeah, it's somewhat satisfying that at least we can see that Holbert Racing is in fact human. I believe Jerry Garrett has a report for us. Jerry?
Bill, we're down here right now with Jack Roush, who has the 4th and 5th place cars overall, 1st and 2nd in GTO, and they just made a couple of quick pit stops. Why?
Well, we've fueled them and tired them for the last time. We're going to let them race to the finish. It looks like we're far enough ahead of the closest GTO car that we won't have any problem with that securing the win. So we're going to let the cars race to the finish.
No problems on either one right now?
Not that I know of. Ricky Rudd came in a little earlier than we expected him, and the car chief got confused and didn't put tires on the car when he might have, so we made 2 little stops with him. But he's 30 seconds ahead of the Southland car right now, 7-Eleven car. We're going to let him race to the end.
Well, 30 seconds apart with this far into the race, quite a feat for those 2 cars.
3 exotic prototypes, and there is one of them, are running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That is the 2nd place car. GTO cars are running 4th and 5th. Remember, that's over 3 liters in engine size. GTU also competing under 3 liters. Working on the front of number 67 there, Bill Adam.
It appears that Sebring is doing its usual tricks, just taking a tremendous toll on machinery. I don't know why, but for some reason we always run into problems.
There you see the driver inside car number 67, the B.F. Goodrich car. Darren Brassfield, the youngster on the team. John Morton with the team, and as you heard earlier, the man who put that team together, Jim Busby, has taken himself out of the driver rotation. He was upside down a couple of days ago here in the sister car, and he thought it had broken his concentration, and so he elected not to continue driving in the 12 hours of Sebring, a race which he dearly loves.
I think that's probably a very wise move on Jim's part, but it's got to be a tremendously difficult decision. Nobody likes to get out of a car, and for someone with Jim's talent and abilities, it's particularly difficult.
LaRowry is now in the rotation. You see them still working in the front. They put about 4 noses on that car since we began this morning.
Yeah, it seems that I think the concrete runways have always had a bad problem with cars. They don't get along together, and certainly this particular Sebring race has been no exception.
Let me for just a moment, as we watch car number 67, tell you that Roger Mandeville looks like he's on his way to his 3rd win in GTU, doing a marvelous job, and he is maintaining a pace after he was clipped almost on the start. There is Derek Bell, still sitting in his car, anxious to get back out here and try to retain that 3rd position. We could have a GTO car, a couple of them moving up here and taking 3rd and 4th before it's over, as we see 14 resting on pit road. Remember that a GTO car won this race, Jim Mullen and company, back in 1983 with a Porsche car. It seems now as if Porsche is going to win for the 15th time on the basis of the Hans Stuck, Gartner, Aiken effort here.
Yeah, I think that they will go on and win it, or it'd certainly be a tragedy if anything happened at this stage of the race, because they have done such a good job. But it really is a tribute to the Porsches and the 962s themselves that we saw Holbert's car take a tremendous impact earlier when Derek Bell contacted the wall, and yet here is this car still running the race.
We're going to be reviewing the highlights of what we've seen here in the 12 hours of Sebring a bit later in our broadcast, and you'll see again when Derek Bell clipped the wall at over 100 miles an hour, got this car airborne, and was able to continue amazingly. When he came down, I was sure he'd have broken something in the suspension.
Oh, I was too. I don't think there's another racing car in the world that could have sustained that sort of damage and still gone on at a good pace. I was really looking for something to fail on the suspension and watched the car very carefully for the few laps following, but seemingly suffered no damage at all.
Let's check in with the old editor, publisher of the National Speed Sport News, Chris Economaki, as we see one of the 962s coming out. Chris?
Car 67 has just pulled out of the pits after a pit stop that was made only because car 14 made a pit stop. The reason was that the nose piece on car 67 had been damaged, and the car had lost its ground effect, handling properly. But when car 14 went to the pits, they felt they could take the time to fix the number 67 car. They had taken the old nose that had been damaged, repaired it, drilled it out, and just reinstalled it. It took longer than they thought because it didn't fit quite right, but it sits back out on the track. Now, whether that position has changed or not, whether 67 is still second, you'll have to tell me upstairs. Back to you.
Has not changed as we have it at the present time. We'll be checking it in just a moment. Record crowd along the midway here at Sebring, and we'll be back with more of our live coverage on the Superstation in just a moment. Hairpin and down a straightaway at about 140 miles per hour through the night on this 12-turn, 4.86-mile course. You are watching West Germany's Joe Gartner in car number 5. The Aiken car with Hans Stuck as another co-driver, currently leading, big advantage, 5 laps. Not the all-time record, a 12-lap victory years ago, but it's substantial. It looks like it may hold up and give Aiken his 2nd victory in this race, as well as Hans Stuck his 2nd victory in the event. Joe Gartner, I believe this is his first time here, and he will come away with a Sebring victory. Some have tried for years, like David Hobbs, and as we mentioned earlier, the BMW team was withdrawn. Hobbs' car catching on fire, and then Bobby Rahal in a terrible endo, rolling over some 6 times here the other day, and they withdrew the team. Now you're watching number 14, 3rd place car still. That's the Holbert Bell Unser car, in trouble on pit road.
Well, this has got to be tremendously frustrating for Derek, sitting in the car and just watching all their hard work today dwindling away at a very fast rate. But it's something good for the competitors, that you do see that Colbert Racing can occasionally be beaten.
So as some people concentrate on the motors, others are concentrating just on keeping warm here on a very cold night in Sebring, Florida. Let's update some of the other developments in motorsports news today. We'll go to the GM Goodwrench Motor Week Illustrated Motorsports Report right now. Here's Bob.
Thank you, Ken. Well, in warmer climes, the stage is set for the opening of the Formula One World Championship. But a crash in qualifying for the Brazilian Grand Prix wiped out the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto and the Lola of Patrick Tambay. Neither driver hurt, but they did have to go to backup cars. In qualifying, Brazilians Ayrton Senna and Nelson Piquet wowed the home folks by sweeping the front row for tomorrow's race. Senna in his Lotus, Piquet in his new Williams. Piquet's teammate Nigel Mansell and French Ligier drivers René Arnoux and Jacques Lafitte round out the top 5 in Brazil. In oval track racing, Martinsville, Virginia will host a NASCAR triple header tomorrow. The big story there, Greg Satz, who set the fastest lap in the history of that tight half mile at Martinsville, going better than 101 miles per hour and winning the pole for the modified event. Meanwhile, the rain-delayed Gator Nationals will run tomorrow up in Gainesville, Florida, just up the road. Fastest among the top fuelers, Big Daddy Don Garlitz. Kenny Bernstein has risen up to overthrow Mark Oswald and lead the funny cars, while Bob Glidden, the defending world champion, will lead the pro stocks there. That's it for this edition of the GM Goodwrench Motor Week Illustrated Racing Update. Let's get back to the racing at hand.
All right, thank you very much, Bob Varsha. Motor Week Illustrated, his regular camping ground, and you see it every Saturday, 5:35, here on the Superstation WTBS. Live coverage here at Sebring, watching as the Stuck car continues to lead. Let me point out that in the smaller prototypes, what they call the Camel Lights, a Mazda Royale with Jim Rothbart, Jeff Klein, and Mike Meyer continue to make news there. They're up in front. Roger Mandeville is leading in GTU. He won it in 80 and 82 in that category, and his little Mazda RX-7 is percolating right along after he lost a fender on the top. There you see some of the action that takes place just across from where we are right now. That's all part of Sebring and has been now for 34 years. What is Sebring, Florida? You hear about it. It is an institution in motor racing, but Sebring is a great deal more, as we found out in this report.
By all outward appearances, Sebring, Florida is just another southern tourist town, a spot on a road map reachable only by a long drive through endless orange groves. The town was founded in 1912 by George Sebring, who beat the Sunbelt movement by more than a half-century with his vision of a resort community on the shores of Lake Jackson. In 1925, the completion of the luxurious Kenilworth Hotel marked the beginning of 2 decades of booming economic growth. Then, during World War II, Hendrick Field was built as a training base for pilots, and Sebring was really on the map. But with the end of the war, the town faced a period of decline. Enter race promoter Alec Ullman, who, with the famous 24-hour sports car race at Le Mans, France as his inspiration, came up with the idea of using the abandoned Hendrick Field as the stage for an American endurance event. The rest, as they say, is history. Today, Sebring is bustling once again. It's downtown, fully restored. The Kenilworth Hotel is full of guests once more, who come to enjoy Lake Jackson, to stroll in the town square, and once each year, to ride out to Old Hendrick Field, where the world's greatest drivers still come to race.
And some of the world's greatest drivers from the past were back here. You saw Sterling Moss running across for that Le Mans start. He was here racing yesterday in vintage competition in a birdcage Maserati. He finished in second place to a grand-looking Ferrari of Peter Sachs from up New York and Connecticut way. Today in the historic race, Tom Congleton came home first in a 68 Porsche. And I might mention, too, the Firehawk race yesterday. It was Tom and Doug Gowd victorious, but we understand that race is under protest, and there'll be more on that story on Motor Week Illustrated this coming Saturday at 5:35. Our live coverage continues here on the Superstation as we continually watch the Joe Gartner car, number 5, this beautiful red and white Porsche 962, slashing its way through the blackness, leading now by 5 laps in this 4.86 mile track. And it seems as though it is on its way. But seems as though and winning are 2 different things here. We've seen so many occasions at Daytona, here and at Sebring, when in those last moments, the car just wouldn't take the pounding.
Well, it's really interesting that both races do run into night, but for some reason, Sebring really has a very special flavor. I don't know why, because it really is only half the distance of Daytona, but it's basically treated as a sprint race, and drivers generally enjoy it. It's not a particularly nice track to drive on because it's very rough. It takes a tremendous toll on equipment, but the spectacle of Sebring, just the enjoyment that everyone has down here, makes this a great event. And driving at night, I think, is something wonderful too. You're aware of the festive atmosphere. There's campfires all over the place, and it's not quite as remote as Daytona.
Do they bother you, those campfires?
Only once, back in 1980, there was a very strange atmospheric condition that allowed the smoke from the fires to go up and then actually settle again over the track. it created a dangerous situation at that point. It wasn't only uncomfortable, it was actually dangerous because the visibility was limited to about 30 feet.
We had a couple of fires start today. Both have been put out. My car's out here on the course. The crew here has done just a remarkable job. The officials all around the track, as well as the people from Sebring who come out and contribute their time to make this such a great racing classic. And they've really had their hands full with this event this year.
Oh, they have. But again, they do such an incredible job. And even the flagmen, we've talked about them before, and I don't think enough can be said about them. For people to stand out for 12 hours in this and do a job with the dedication that they show is something special.
Well, we'll be concluding about 11:13. They started 13 after 11 this morning. There you see that lead car around the hairpin another time. And the Bob Aiken team looks like they're on their way to victory with Joe Gardner currently aboard number 5. We'll have more from Sebring live on the Superstation after these messages. Climax of the 12 hours of Sebring and its 34th running, and for the 15th time it appears that Porsche has it wrapped up. The only car that comes close is Ferrari over the years, with 9 victories in this 12-hour endurance contest. And right now, this number 5 maintains this lead. It's been running flawlessly. It's been dominating over the past several hours. Here it is streaking along 180, 85 miles an hour through the darkness. They've detuned a bit from the tremendous speeds they turned in qualifying, but that's still mighty quick through the blackness.
Oh, what a record this is for Porsche. It really is incredible. You know, it's a strange situation right now, because when we, and I speak to myself as a driver, not as a broadcaster at this point, but when we're between races, we're looking forward to the next race, anxious to get back in the car to enjoy the sensations of being in a good performance car. But I'll guarantee right now, Joe Gardner is just waiting for that flag to fall. He's saying, come on, flag, where are you?
Jerry Garrett is standing by with the man who has put this team together and is one of the drivers in the rotation.
We're here with Bob Aiken right now, and I guess, Bob, we would be guilty of understatement if we said there was an undercurrent of tension and drama here in this pit right now.
Well, I really wish this next half hour would just go away real quick, because, you know, anything can still happen, Jerry, and usually does to us. So we've got one more stop to make for a splash of fuel to get to the end, and then Joe will continue in the car and finish the race. But it, you know, it looks as good as it could at this point, I guess.
You've got to be agonizing over these minutes after what happened to you the last 3 years while leading at this time.
Yeah, and I had a car once that stopped on the very last lap of the Le Mans 24-hour race, 3 miles from the finish, and we didn't get credit for that finish. So, you know, I know what it's like to come right up to the brink and not finish. So I'm not going to breathe a sigh of relief until it's over.
Well, Bob hopes they got their bad luck out of the way with this car. In 2 previous races this year, it's been wrecked both times.
John Bright, the crew chief, has done a marvelous job with this car, so well prepared. Last year, one of the most dramatic things I've ever seen was watching Hans Stuck qualify it. He came through this turn 12 dirt tracking sideways on this old pavement. But then in the race itself, it broke down early in the going.
Yeah, I remember that well myself. There are certain performances by drivers that really stick out in your memory, and Hans' performance last year, I think, wowed everyone. We've talked about that at a number of events, just sitting with different drivers, and you always reflect back and think, God, do you remember that time at Sebring when Hans? Well, that was one of the absolute magic moments when everything worked right, and it was a shame they didn't win that race that year.
Let's reflect back right now on the beginning of this 34th running of Sebring. Bob Barsha has this report on how it all began at 11:13 this morning.
Some 77 cars went to the start for the 34th running of the Sebring 12 hours before a record crowd. The surprises began right at the start, however, when GTO top qualifier Jack Baldwin couldn't get his car started. At the very start, the battle was joined between the pole-sitting Buick of John Paul and Al Unser in his Porsche. First car out was the German Yost team, Le Mans winners. Holbert and Bell took the 14 Porsche out fast, hoping to stretch their lead out early. Meanwhile, a great battle in three-way battle behind that car for second place between Hans Stuck, John Paul Jr. in the Buick, and A.J. Foyt in a Porsche.
I will will be in the pits in less than 2 laps.
But Foyt was to suffer trouble with that car. A persistent misfire put them in the pit. Then the 14 Porsche of Al Holbert and Derek Bell found themselves with pit problems. They weren't alone. When Foyt and team were able to solve their misfire problems, they were able to get their car back on the track and put it back in the lead. But only until the 86 car of defending champion Bob Wallach and Paolo Barilla. But they too suffered problems and were eventually to fall out of the race. That turned the lead over once again to A.J. Foyt, the Indy legend, in the number 8 Porsche, and that's the way they stood as the race approached the 1/3 mark.
Well, now here we are in this last hour, and it's still that number 5, that picture you saw running in second place behind A.J. and Preston Hen's car. We'll tell you more about that story as to what happened to them in a few moments. We're watching now. We understand the leader may be coming in very shortly for a final stop. They're within sight of the hour. They have to be running to cross the line to officially win this race, right, Bill?
That's correct, Ken. And it's something that everybody tries to do. There have been situations of drivers suffering terminal mechanical problems in their cars, maybe parking in the pits for that last lap and just limping around just to get credit for the finish. With the Camel GT system, there are points awarded for cars in the different class, and naturally you want to try and pick up every little bit you can. This is the reason for the finish being so important.
It's about $125,000 in purse money here, but it's not the purse. This has always been the race for the prestige. This has been the race where Americans first got an opportunity to see international sports car drivers, to see Fangio out of the World Championship Series, to see Sterling Moss competing against the likes of John Fitch and Phil Walters in those early days, and the dad of the man that is currently in 3rd place, Al Holbert, who ran so well on this racetrack. And it has been that combination of international stars and American racers that made the early tradition of Sebring live and continue to what it is today.
Well, Sebring has always been the scene of just some of the most brilliant battles in the history of sports car racing, with Jim Hall and the Chaparrals having a very, very popular win back in the mid-60s. The Fords, when they come out with their GT40s and the 427 cubic inch Ford GT products, the Ferraris, Mario Andretti winning here in the early 70s. Just a tremendous international flavor has always existed here.
Watching the great Pedro Rodriguez in this race. Well, there you see the men who are trying to put their names in the record book, and they continue their way with Joe Gartner now at the keyboard of car number 5, maintaining a 5-lap advantage over car number 67 in 2nd place, the BF Goodrich 962, Holbert and Bell 3rd. Then we have 2 GTO cars. That's Elliott and Rudd running in 4th, the stock car guys, and then Bruce Jenner and Pruitt are running in 5th. Interesting to note that back in 9th is Roger Mandeville. He's leading in GTU, and he has kept that little Mazda right up in there throughout the hunt.
Well, Roger's such an intelligent driver, too. He has been a champion before. He continues to show just the tremendous ability in a car, and part of that ability, which is being shown to be so important, is to make a car live. Roger can do that, and wasn't really upset by the initial problems with the car, stuck to his predetermined pace, and now here he is leading his class, and looks like he's going on for another class win.
Let's go to Jerry Garrett standing by on pit road.
Well, the leader is due in any minute now. They've got his pit board out here. The crew is up on the wall. They expect to make just a routine stop. They're going to check the tires and put in just enough fuel to get them the last 20 or so minutes of this race. We expect it to be nothing more than routine.
There they are, waiting on pit road for the final stop by that lead car. And you shudder to think what happens when you come in, and sometimes they just refuse to fire and go on their way.
Oh, the possibility of that happening is quite real, too. That Bob Aiken did make a reference to previous problems with this particular race, and he has suffered some of the most heartbreaking losses imaginable.
Well, we saw him on the Superstation in Charlotte last year in that terrible crash where the John Paul car cut loose, came across the infield, hit him and put him right into the wall and destroyed the car, and they were months getting it back together. But here they are, looking now as if they're on their way to win this event, and they're coming onto pit road at this moment. Here's Jerry Garrett.
Okay, the wheels are stopped here on the leading Porsche number 5. Joe Gartner at the wheel. They're coming out taping down a couple of things on the front fender. That's no problem. They're just trying to make sure that everything is ship-shape on this car for the last few miles to go here. They're putting in gas there, just enough, they say, to get them to the finish. They don't need very much, but it goes in very slowly. There's a little bit of fuel running out there that Hans Stuck is concerned about, but it doesn't seem to be enough to cause any problems. He's ready to go back out, and the whole thing is completed here in 33 seconds, and that's no way going to jeopardize that huge lead they have.
Young Joe Gartner, who came highly recommended to Aiken, takes the car back out for the final stint as we arrive closer to that 11:13 time, which will terminate the 12 hours of Sebring for 1986. Lead car back underway, flawless pit stop, refueling, looks to be in great shape to wind this race up.
You can notice Hans just going to the front of the car there, just a signalist co-driver with his hand. Just take it very easy, Joe. There's no pressure here. We've got a good lead. Just drive your pace when you've been doing. Just a little reassurance from one driver to the other.
Let's take a look at some of the other earlier action here today in the 12 hours of Sebring. We gave you the start. Now let's look at some more of the highlights from earlier. This was A.J. Foyt.
A very uncharacteristic wheel put wrong by A.J. Foyt. One of 3 trips off the track, taken within 10 laps for the Indy legend. A.J. was able to continue, but his car fell out shortly thereafter with transmission problems. A.J.'s team not the only one to suffer problems. The 67 Porsche, Jim Busby, Darren Brasfield, and John Morton led for a time, but had an unfortunate confrontation with a tire barrier, broke up the bodywork, tore up a tire, and had to pit, falling out of the lead. That pit stop put, who would you guess, back on front? The 14 Porsche, Al Holbert, Derek Bell, and Al Unser Jr. But things were not all rosy for that team as well, with Derek Bell nursing a bad back that he re-injured earlier this week and had to visit a chiropractor for. Bell found himself coming down the back stretch and watched this confrontation with a cement wall on the outside. 2 wheels up in the air, the car miraculously stays together, and Derek Bell was able to keep it into the lead. Bell hoping to help Al Holbert with his 3rd Sebring race for Porsche. In the lights class, the father-son team of Kelly and Don Marsh and teammate Ron Pauly had their own problems with back rockers, going off and crashing into one tire barrier after another, totally demolishing the front of the car and taking that car out of the race. Meanwhile, NASCAR star Phil Parsons, problems of his own. His exhaust set the grass on fire when Phil stopped to examine damage on his front end. Gave a corner worker the opportunity to play Smokey the Bear. The GTO battle throughout this 12 hours of Sebring has been a terrific fight. The number 50 car, driven by NASCAR stars Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd, battling with Bruce Jenner and Scott Pruitt in the number 7 Mustang throughout the afternoon. And the Camel Light prototype division for specially built smaller cars, Facchetti and Finauto in the 80 car leading for most of the day. They later fell out with mechanical problems, and that's the way things stood as the race reached the 2/3 mark.
The Elliott and Rudd car number 50 have just a few seconds over the number 7 of Bruce Jenner. And meanwhile, number 5 stays in front, trying to win this race. Here's Chris Economaki.
I'm standing at the place where everybody wants to be when an automobile race is over. Victory Lane here at Sebring, Florida. Again, as has been the case in so many years in the past, that a Porsche will be sitting here when the checkered flag is raised. The interesting story about the race today, though, is Porsche. 6 of their highly touted 962s started this race. 3 have fallen by the wayside, and 3 remain, and they are in the first 3 positions. The second place Porsche has had 4 different drivers and a last-minute substitute. It seems as though when it comes to Sebring, Porsche is unbeatable. Back to you.
We'll be back with more of the live action of the 34th running in the 12 hours of Sebring after we pause for these messages. Stand by for the finish here on the Superstation.
The STP Pit Communication Center in Sebring, Florida. I'll tell you what, it is cold. It's been chilly all day here today, but the red hot action is going right down to the wire. We've got a tremendous battle going on in the GTO division, and we're going to tell you about that. But first, I have been instructed. I didn't want to do this. I have been instructed to explain why all day I've been walking around on these things. These guys love to race cars out here at Sebring. A little later this year, they're going to run a motorcycle race on this racetrack, and I like to race motorcycles, and This is the penalty. I'm paying for that. It's been a great Sebring, 1986. Let's find out about the stock car guys who came down here from their roundy-round oval track wars to take another shot at road racing. They've done very well at it, and the guy who is sort of the captain of the team, if you will, in that GTO division driving a Mustang is Bill Elliott. Jerry Garrett visited him on pit road just about an hour ago.
In the little bit of time that's left, Bill Elliott, who's got the advantage on this two-car team?
Well, I don't know. We've got a little bit of lead on Scott Pruitt, but Scott's got a little bit more of night experience on Ricky, and I think it's just going to come down to hope both cars hold together, and I hope it's a good race to the end.
You guys don't get too much night racing experience, do you?
No, running with headlights ain't our specialty, but, you know, we've learned a lot since the 24-hour race and coming here and running, and I feel like get us a few more races under our belt, we'll be pretty good at it, I hope.
The pit stops in this are a little bit different than they are in NASCAR, aren't they?
Well, quite a bit, because you play such a different strategy in running 12 hours in an endurance race than you do running 500 miles like we do. So, you know, you've got a little bit more gas with these cars, plus they got jacks and they change normally all 4 tires and you go a little bit longer. So it's just quite a bit of different deal to try to get used to.
And you're running with a guy as a teammate who's usually a rival.
That's true, but you know, Ricky's a good driver, and he's proven it the way he's run out here today, and I look forward to running with him some more.
Now that's what Bill Elliott had to say just a little bit earlier about the battle that they're having in the GTO division. Let's bring you up to date on that. Here's your top 3. The blue indicating GTP class cars. Those are all Porsches. The Aiken-Stuck Gardner team, your leaders, Brassfield, Busby, Morton, and Larari in second. Holbert, Bell, and Unser, after that long pit stop, appear to have third place secured. It doesn't appear they can lose that spot. But here in fourth is Bill Elliott with Ricky Rudd now driving the car on the same lap, and in fact, in a great battle, the other Ford product with Bruce Jenner and Scott Pruitt at the controls. And let's have Jerry update that story now live from pit road. Jerry?
Well, Dave, about 5 laps ago, we timed the interval between the Ribbs, not the Willie Ribbs car, that's the car that Ribbs drove last year, between the NASCAR guys and the Scott Pruitt car, and it was about 30 seconds. Now Pruitt has narrowed that down to 8 seconds, and he's closing in with the next couple of laps. We might see a lead change.
Well, this falls exactly into the format that we had expected. Jack Roush is the guy who ramrods both those cars. He's the team manager, if you will, for both those automobiles. What happened is they got their late race pit stops all synced up. They knew they had the Class 1, and so Jack Roush said, go for it, guys, get out there and race it up. And Scott Pruitt, the road racer, is reeling in Ricky Rudd, the stock car driver. That is a battle that is going to go right down to the wire. They're just seconds apart on the racetracks. One of the great stories of this Sebring. Now let's see some of the other great highlights of the last 12 hours of competition here. Once again, Bob Varcher with more of today's highlights.
Thank you, Dave. As the race wound into its third 4-hour stretch, the 46 Buick Hawk of John Paul Jr., Whit Jansen, Ken Madron made its way to the lead. But as the case for most of the other leaders today, it was not to last. A broken oil line forced the Buick to eventually retire. Trouble for others was a boon to this car, the number 5 of Hans Stuck, Bob Aiken, Ken Gartner, who lead to this moment. Meanwhile, an exhaust problem led to a long 12-minute pit stop for Al Holbert, Derek Bell, Al Unser Jr. They dropped to third place. Moving into second, the 67 Porsche of Busby, who stepped aside in favor of Argentina's Oscar Larori. Still debris on the track led to a damaged nose and a long pit stop for that car. They're presently running second. Meanwhile, in the GTU division, despite going off the track twice, Tom Kendall, Bob Reed, and John Hogdell in their Mazda RX-7 managed to hold on to that lead. In the lights class, the 66 car led for a time before the Sebring Gremlins struck their effort as well. As the day passed into night, the battles raged in this 34th running of the 12 hours, and as the moon shone over Sebring for the 34th year, the battle turned to GTO, where NASCAR drivers Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd in the number 50 Mustang battle an identical car, number 7, Bruce Jenner, the Olympic hero, and Scott Pruitt, the road racer. As Dave mentioned, that battle is going on now. A bizarre incident struck the leaders just a short time ago. When Hans Stuck pitted the car, a wheel came off and struck 2 members of Jim Downing's Camel Lights crew, Jay Jensen and Mike Culp, both taken to local hospitals. Culp with a bump and is apparently in fine shape. Jensen at last report in serious condition, and we'll keep monitoring his situation. Dave, that brings us back up to date.
And so the 12 hours of Sebring is headed toward its conclusion here on a very, very chilly Florida night. And we're going to go back to Ken Squire and Bill Adam. Guys, we're setting up for a great finish here.
Indeed we are. It appears now as if that Aiken car is on its way to victory. It happens at 11:13 tonight that he will win for the second time this event, as will Stuck. And Joe Gartner will find himself in the record book as the third member of that triumvirate to carry those red and white colors into victory lane. Chris Economaki will be standing by. Doesn't seem like there's much that can stop them now. That last pit stop they made was flawless.
Well, I certainly hope there isn't anything that can stop them, but at this point, Joe is listening to more noises than he has ever heard in his life. He hears the transmission, he hears the motor, he hears the suspension. Everything is making noise, and he's starting to worry.
And he's seeing more shadows.
Definitely. At this point, you start imagining things, and you're just dying to see that checkered flag. You can't wait at this point. You want to maybe take it a little bit easy, but you don't want to lose that concentration. Every so often, you get a situation developing where you do try and slow down just that little bit. You want to take it easy, and because you're doing that, you lapse that concentration and you make a mistake.
A 123-mile-per-hour slalom course in this 12-turn course. We have another new record. Lap 282 completes the old mark for distance, and they've now covered 1,370 miles. Let's take a look at the attrition in the race. There are some of the cars out. Wallach, Levin car that won the Miami Grand Prix retiring. Yenko and Hines, number 51, is out. The Adams Hotchkiss car, the Calasian car, has disappeared from the race in the early going, and there are many more that have retired from this event. One of the major stories here as we take a look at the attrition, the Jags, both number 44 and 04 have retired. They were running pretty stout-hearted effort early, but an oil pump put away the Bob Tullius car, and the 04 car, that's the Brian Redmond Hurley Haywood team, they developed a head gasket problem and had to come out of competition. Again, reporting now that 42 of the 77 starters are still in competition. These are some of the cars out of the event. There's the Hunt Shelton car, number 89, away. Taking a look at some of the machinery that will not be around. Here's Jerry Garrett.
Well, we are down here on pit road with the team leader of the second place car, Jim Busby, and I don't know if you can get first place, but you're going to be able to protect second.
Looks like with this few laps remaining, we're about as many laps ahead as there are remaining. So we're slowing him right down just to make sure that we do lock that second place position.
What are the problems on your car right now?
Right now we've got a broken frame that's holding the nose on, and so it's dragging on the ground, so we're slowing right down so that the downforce on the nose doesn't just actually push it into the ground and rotate it. We've gone through 5 noses, and this is our last one. If we lose this, we've got no lights.
We understand the third place car is not in a position to make much of a move because they have a broken upright. Maybe Chris Economaki has more down pit road.
Well, we're here with Bruce Jenner, who is Scott Pruitt's teammate, watching what's happening. You got the clock out?
Well, yeah, we just saw one go by. Let me see where old Scott is.
All right.
Well, we lost a little bit of ground. We're only 4 seconds, but we caught some traffic. Now we're about probably 6 seconds back.
You think if Scott's going to be able to reel him in?
The biggest problem is tires. You know, he ran a 27.5 on his last lap. That's only a second off what the pole position was, at 4 seconds faster than what he qualified. So obviously this good cool air is doing him a lot of good, but I don't know. It's going to be, it's not going to be tough, and not going to be easy at all. Ricky Rudd's good.
Yeah, so Rudd is in, not Elliott, Rudd is in the other car?
Yeah, Ricky Rudd is in the car right now, and Scott's right behind him.
Okay, what was it Jack Roush told you guys about this closing race?
He said we're not racing until we know we've got at least one, and then when we've got it won, then we go. We started out about 38, almost 40 seconds behind him, about 40 minutes with left in the race, and now we got it down to about 4 seconds. So Scott's doing some driving. Let me tell you, Scott Pruitt is one tough driver.
Okay, Bruce Jenner, the big javelin thrower here, rooting for his teammate Scott Pruitt. Back to you, Ken.
Olympic decathlon champion and currently #1 in GTO series of IMSA, and he's really getting serious about his motorsports in 1968 and intends to run the entire series and is looking for other events to run as well. watching his teammate right now try to close up on Ricky Rudd, and the stock car gang is out in front of the GTO classification. They're running 4th overall among the 77 starters, the 42 cars that are still out here existing through this treacherous 12-turn, 4.86-mile course. There's the leader, number 5, sandwiched in between a couple of machines, trying to sort himself out.
It really is remarkable.
There's the Holbert car on pit road.
Scott Pruitt, I think, has just done such an outstanding job today. He's a very young driver, really doesn't have a great deal of experience, but he's driving like someone that has just spent years on Sebring. On the other hand, we've got Ricky Rudd, a man who, well, to be honest, a NASCAR driver, just only a very few years ago, they were thought as only being able to turn left. Ricky has disproven that in a hurry.
Let's check in on the timeliest move award in the race. Here's Dave Despain.
Well, both of those pit reports that we just heard involve players in the timeliness is everything in racing game that we've been playing here with the Tag Heuer people, the people who time a lot of the racing in Camel GT competition. And during the course of this event, we've been giving away some Tag Heuer stopwatches to people who have proven that indeed timeliness is everything in motorsport. Let me take a look at a piece of videotape with you right now. We had a car that was off the racetrack. This was one of the stock car. Oh, this is going to be the pit stop here. Okay, we're going to go right to the pit stop. This is the number 50 car, and we're looking at Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd as they came in. The point here being, again, Jack Roush. Jack Roush put together the two teams that came down here to race in GTO, and they took a very grand national stock car style approach to this event. They made quick pit stops. They drove long driver shifts to minimize the driver change time, and once it was all done, his two cars were running first and second in class, 4th and 5th overall. Then he said, guys, get out there and go for it. It's the best race on the track right now. And in the final analysis, the guy who is going to demonstrate on behalf of the Tag Heuer people that timeliness is everything in racing is Jack Roush. We got a nice prize for him. My good friend Chuck Trongali has, I want to make sure I get this right, stainless steel and gold sports watch from Tag Heuer. It's going to go to Jack Roush. Let me quickly put in a plug for the other two guys that I think deserve a tip of the hat. One is Jim Busby. Busby took himself out of his race car. He wrecked early in the week. He said, I just can't concentrate. I'm not doing it right. He got out of the car and put in Oscar Larari, and that car is going to go on to second place. And finally, that unsung fireman who put out the blaze under the car of Phil Parsons and kept it from going up in flames. Our congratulations to them, and now to Jerry Garrett.
Well, we were down here by pit road, and behind me is the victory circle area. The race has still got a few minutes to run, but right now Bob Aiken and his crew are already here. They've counted down the laps and decided they can't lose.
Car number 5 in front. There you saw the crew waiting, walking on eggs out there.
Oh, they sure are. They're just so anxious at this point. They're so looking forward to that celebration, but they're a little bit afraid to start yet.
Let me remind you that our next event will be live flag to flag on the Superstation May 18th. The Charlotte race on the road course, Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll be back for the finish tonight, right after these words. We're with you and we're watching. We believe the leader here looks like he's having a problem, and a serious one.
It looks like he might have even lost a wheel, Kenneth. The left front area is sparking very heavily. I believe he's lost that wheel.
Remember, he lost a wheel earlier. Car number 5 slowing down.
Oh, no.
Some automobiles coming on pit road. Leader coming on pit road. Let's go to Jerry Garrett on pit road.
We see the leader coming into the pits, and it's ironic that most of his pit crew is already down here in Victory Circle standing by for his imminent arrival. So that only a partial crew is down there awaiting this problem.
There you see the leader on pit road. He has a 4-lapper, larger than that advantage now. I believe they're showing that as 8-lap advantage over the second place car, number 67. Here's Chris Economaki.
Okay, I'm down here with Bob Aiken. You've got a big lead. The car's in the pits. He can just wait there till 1 minute of 11 or whatever it is.
Yeah, as soon as the checker is out, he can just drive up here and take the checker right here in the pit lane.
Okay, so the car owner, Bob Aiken, is not at all concerned about this last-minute problem. They have a big, big lead over the second-place car. In fact, it's won already because even if the car collapsed now, the second-place car could not make up the difference in the amount of time remaining. Back to you.
That is the second wheel problem. Remember, they thought they had a tire puncture. They came around, got the car on pit road. Tire came off. It hit two members of the Jim Downing crew on one of the Camel light cars. We will update you on that story in a moment. Let's go to Jerry Garrett.
Well, Ken, just now, Ricky Rudd came in the pits and apparently has given the GTO lead over to Scott Pruitt on what may be the final lap of the race.
Indeed, car number 7 is now in front of car number 50 as we get into this last lap. That little dogfight that's been going on in the GTO category among the Roush team participants, going right down to the wire, and they've swapped it another time. I think that one's gone back and forth about 15 times. Overall, on the front of the race, there have been 20 lead changes among 6 drivers here in this 34th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring. Car number 5 is back on the course after having another tire problem. Now, the late report on the injured crew member on Jim Downing's car, Jay Jensen of Atlanta, Georgia, he was taken to the Winter Haven Neurological Hospital, is in intensive care. They say he has sustained a small brain hemorrhage. No surgery is anticipated. They were moving his arms and legs, but had lost his speech at the time that they had taken him into the hospital. That's the latest word we have.
Hopefully he will be all right. I'm certainly that we're all concerned about him.
We were blessed that it was 2 members, that tire coming off, and of course a lot of people stand along that wall. It hit him with such impact that the tire went over the wall and back on the track, and the International Motorsports Association officials were really concerned that one of these cars was going to hit that tire. They got it out to the outside, and then we saw the crew chief on car number 5 go out and get it back.
Well, with these vehicles all being rear-engine cars and just really having a fiberglass shell at the front, to hit a 50 or 60-pound unit like that could cause some tremendous damage and could be very, very dangerous.
With wheel 75 or 80 pounds on these tires.
Very easily. This is just amazing, just this last lap dramatics. I'm sure Mr. Aiken's going to need more than his product, his sponsor, to drink if any more of this happens.
Joe Gartner driving in front. Brassfield in the 67 is maintaining second. Holbert and Bell, Al Unser Jr. in third, all 962 Porsches. In fourth spot, change of position now. We have Jenner and Pruitt up there. Scott Pruitt, that youngster, one of the major injuries at Miami was sustained by his mother. She fell over a ball hitch and broke her arm. She's been here cheering throughout the entire 12 hours. And her son is up in fourth position now as the Elliott Rudd car falls back into fifth. And then in the 6th position overall is the Rothbarth car.
There's
the checkered flag coming out, going down for car number 5. And that is Hans Stuck, West Germany there, greeting Joe Gartner as he comes across the line to win the 12 Hours of Sebring for 1986.
That is really tremendous. Bob Aiken has tried so many times, and to finally have this happen is just his dream coming true tonight.
Well, last year they had a tire explode and eliminated the car. The year before, remember, they had that nut freeze on the wheel that put them out way late in the race when they thought they had it won. 287 laps have been completed. It's a new record for distance in 12 hours. That car has covered 1,394 miles, and there is a new record for speed of the 12 Hours of Sebring. All going to this red and white car number 5. Chris Economaki waiting to greet the winners in victory lane. We hope to be getting word of the 2nd and 3rd place finishers and meet the GTO champions as well.
This is marvelous. You know, Bob is just one of the most highly respected and best liked individuals in the Camel GT series. He has gone through so many setbacks and so many disappointments. To finally get this win just makes it doubly special for him.
There you see Hans Stuck on the left, the Formula One driver. His father, a very famous Grand Prix driver back in the 30s.
And what an outstanding job he did today.
That's his 3rd ride now with that team. He'll be around all season with car number 5. That's going to be exciting to see him in race after race this year. Coming up, of course, again, May 18th, Charlotte, live, flag-to-flag coverage here on the Superstation from top to bottom on that one. Now the multitude begins to gather. The anarchy will reign, as it always does here. The best laid plans and all that definitely go agley here at Sebring when we get down to victory lane time.
And it's such a good opportunity just to say what a marvelous job that Jack Roush and his team have done today.
Jenner and Pruitt will be given the win in GTO, and they weren't given that at all. They had to fight for it. Then in the Camel Light Series, the small prototype cars, it's going to be the Mazda Royale of Rothbart Meyer. They're going to come home in the 6th position in the race, first in their category. And Roger Mandeville has done it again. He won it in 80 and 82 in the GTU, the under 3-liter classification. He is going to bring his car home in 8th and first in GTU. Here's car number 5 wending its way around this 4.86 mile course on this old B-17 training base at Sebring, Florida. And here in the darkness, elation, and let's join some of it right now with Chris Economaki in Victory Lane.
Okay, we're down here with the happy winners. How you doing, beautiful? Hey, Bob?
Yes,
1962 you came here to begin with?
1960, Chris. Came here to run a minor event, forerunner curtain raiser to the 12-hour, and I watched the guys in the 12-hour. At that point, it was Sterling Moss and Phil Hill and those guys, and I thought, boy, I really want to do that someday.
You know, Bob, this morning somebody said, that's Mr. A in number 5, Mr. Almost. How many times have you come close here?
Well, we've led this race about 5 or 6 times over the last, since we won it in '79, and always, you know, in a point where we're contending to win, but always had something go wrong, and this time it just didn't happen.
You know, Bob, very rarely does somebody that's an American businessman that does racing as a hobby come down here and win this race. It's quite an achievement. How much time do you have to devote to the sport?
Well, fortunately, I have a very good crew chief in John Bright, and when the car gets back to the shop, I really can just about forget about it, except to stop in the morning or on the way home from work. And you know, I let it go on its own, and it works out very well. I just worry about the sponsors.
Okay, now this fellow Gartner you got from Austria, how did you find him and why did you pick him?
Well, he's a Yokohama contract driver who I hadn't heard about until Bert told me about him and suggested I give him a try, and we tried him at the finale, you know, last fall, and he did a great job. So
the hat dance is beginning.
Yeah, the hat dance is beginning. All right.
So how are you going to celebrate, Bob?
Well, I haven't had a lot of chance to think about it yet, but little champagne I see stacked up behind us. I imagine we'll drink most of that, spray the rest of it on the crowd. Right.
What about the sponsor's product?
Well, we have a little Coke here, too, yes.
The race is sponsored by Coca-Cola, and your car, it's a very appropriate victory.
Yeah, for Coca-Cola and Yokohama and Paradigm and the people that have supported us all this year, it's a fabulous victory. I'm glad we're able to do it for them.
Okay, thanks a lot, and good luck to you, Bob. Here comes the winning car. Hans Stuck is playing gatekeeper over there. He is really an effusive guy. We'll get a word with him in a few moments. Not that we don't get run over here by the winning car coming in. Well, at least it's got some brakes, and believe me, it's pandemonium breaking loose down here. Whatever damage was done to the car during the race is nothing to the damage it's going to sustain in this frenzied Victory Lane celebration here. There's Hans Stuck on top of the car. Joe Stuck is from Bavaria, Gartner is from Austria, and Aiken, of course, is from Ossining, New York. And you can see the real pandemonium that prevails here. They're standing up in the car. They wouldn't let you touch this car this morning. Now they're standing on it. What a racing car, and what a happy group of guys winning the 34th annual running of this famous 12-hour endurance race, the most famous endurance race in North America. And it continues on here. I had breakfast with Aiken and Gartner this morning, and they were very sedate, very specific about what they wanted to have so they could go 12 hours. Golly, everybody's getting soaked here. Okay, and now let's step away, and here's Jerry Garrett.
Well, we're down here with the GTO winners right now. Bruce Jenner, you watched your co-driver come in with the victory here on the last lap virtually in the race. That had to be pretty exciting for you from the pits.
Yeah, it was very exciting. It's the toughest part to be in the pits and everything. Scott is one hell of a driver. You know, you really have to give Scott a lot of credit. You know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to drive with him. But we've had very frustrated. We lost 24 hours of Daytona in the last half hour. And then at Sebring, in the last lap, Scott got knocked off the track, and I looped it, so we both didn't win there. So we came back here. We wanted to win, and it's really tough to win against such a tough team. You know, the Folgers Mustang and the 711 Mustang are Roush cars, and they're very well prepared, and they're tough to beat your partner, you know.
Well, Bruce Jenner with a big lead in the GTO point standings right now. And Scott Pruitt, you helped put your teammate out into a big lead, and you did it with a dramatic pass there just about on the last lap.
Boy, I'll tell you, it was getting down there to the end, and we were really going hard. And coming out of the back, both of us ran out of gas. Mine got going again. We came in, filled up, and I took off. And next thing I knew, it was the end, boy. I'll tell you, the car ran perfect. 711 Mustang, man, it went great, boy, so.
Yeah, you got to give, wait a second, you got to give the car a lot of credit, but Scott, in the final laps, ran a 27.5. That's almost 4 seconds faster than he qualified.
Sandbagging, huh?
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, Chris Economac has another report down pit road.
Okay, we're here with Joe Gartner standing on this overstrained winning car. Joe, congratulations, a fine drive. How many times have you raced in America?
That's my third time now, I guess. Yeah, the first race was the Daytona finale last year.
And your third time, and you're here a winner. What kind of a day was it for you at the wheel out there?
Oh yeah, I thought it's a wheel bearing gone, and I was really afraid about because I didn't know how long the race will take. But okay, to put another wheel on was no problem.
And what about the wheel problem? Were you involved in that?
Yeah, I lost the wheel 2 laps before the end, but we put a new wheel on, and in the last lap I lost it again.
Really?
Yeah, so I won the race on 3 wheels.
A 3-wheel victor here. Okay, Joe Gardner, the winner. We'll be back with more from Sebring after these messages.
Well, the number that's up there, number 1 on the board, number 5. And here's how he came across the line, averaging 115.852 miles per hour for a new speed record as Hans Stuck leaped in the air to greet his fellow German compatriot who he drove so much of this race with. And Chris Economaki is standing by with Hans Stuck now.
Hey, Stucky, a new speed record. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's what we're here for.
I guess your father would be proud of you as a big racing driver.
Unfortunately, I can't see this now, but he will be very pleased, you know.
What about your day on the track? Did you have a good time, or did you have a lot of trouble?
Yes, we had a very good plan for the race, you know. We thought before. We do laps between 19 and 24. That's what we stick to all the race. Stay out of trouble. That was winning the race, you know.
Okay, continued good luck to you. Hans Stuck, one of the 3 winners. That's it from Victory Lane.
Well, up here in the STP Pit Communication Center, we've assembled all the troops. Champion Sparkplug Racer of the Week, an institution on Motor Week Illustrated. Champion Sparkplug Racer of the Day. You don't get a chance to think about it. I want a quick nomination from everybody. We'll start at the end. Bob Barsha.
I nominated him earlier in the day, and I'll stay with him. For Playing in Pain, Derek Bell, and Al Holbert's number 14.
1 for Bell. Ken Squire.
I'm going to go with Aiken. I just thought that was a marvelous performance all the way through.
I save tiebreaker rights for myself. Bill Hennessy.
Gardner came into this race and experienced this particular racetrack, took the car to the front, kept it there, and remained calm throughout the entire 12 hours.
Lynn St. James.
I've got to have a tie with Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd. First time in this kind of a track. They're Ford people, and they did a super job.
How about Bill Adam?
I'll go with Hans Stuck. I think he ran a super hard pace at the start when it was required of him, yet he kept the car out of trouble. No impacts at all.
Look, here we are again. Now, I always get to pick, right? Nobody votes for the same. Am I right?
St. James, she's a Ford driver anyway. I mean, you can't count that.
You want to just cross that off?
Oh,
that
yeah.
was prejudice on her part. But I've still got to decide this thing. I'm going to go with Stuck because when you can go out on this racetrack and qualify at the speed he did and then come back after 12 hours of racing and run as fast at night as you qualified, to me, that's a real race driver. I think Hans Stuck. That's my pick. Champion Sparkplug Racer of the Day from a very, very impressive field of candidates. We're not done with all of you people. You see Stuckey celebrating there along with Aiken, his teammate. Gartner got a vote. That whole team obviously nominated for that honor here as they have conquered this 1986 running of the Sebring 12-hour. Now let's take a moment and kind of reflect on it. We have here all of the people who have covered this event from the start to, 13, 14 minutes late. Jerry Garrett has joined us now. Jerry, you're too late to vote. That's a shame. But let's begin with you in our reflection on the event. I'd like everybody to tell me how they're going to remember this Sebring. Are you out of breath, or can you give me a quick thought on that?
Well, I'm both, but I think that the GTO finish was electrifying for the fans, the way that came down to just like the last lap. and Pruitt was able to pull it out and win. That was NASCAR fashion.
It really was a late charge right down to the wire. Bob Varsha, your reflections on this event.
Well, aside from remembering it as probably the coldest event of any kind that I have ever been to, I think we ought to put in a good word for Bob Akin. Last year we saw him crash hard at Charlotte. This year we saw him crash hard at Daytona. They've had to rebuild that car so many times. We saw him be very gracious in defeat, and I'm proud to say that we've seen him be very gracious as a winner today in Sebring.
Big day for him. Ken Squire, you've seen it all from the best vantage place in the house.
A couple of things stand out. A, the stock car guys and how well they did here. It really speaks well for that new NASCAR series they're developing. Bill Elliott's a great road racer, and Ricky Rudd certainly proved it today. Parsons looked good out there earlier before they had some problems. They really came on strong, and I thought Roger Mandeville did an outstanding job in that GTU category.
The crossover from stock car racing to sports car racing and the other way around could be great for all forms of motorsport. I mean, that's just a good story with plays every week.
Wait till they get to Watkins Glen up there in August. These guys are going to be something.
Well, the celebration goes on in Victory Lane. And, Chris, I'm going to give you a minute to catch your breath and go to Bill Adam. Bill, when a race driver comes up in the broadcast booth, you obviously have an interesting perspective on the event. How do you see this one?
Well, like Bob, I agree. This is the coldest event I've ever been to down here. But, yeah, I'm really very pleased for the Bob Akin crew. I think they have just done a wonderful job today, and particularly happy for Bob himself. He is such a nice, a well-liked, well-respected individual. To finally get the icing on the cake, it's a wonderful day for him.
Lynn, you were with us today on Motor Week Illustrated as co-host, and we enjoyed that. I know in a lot of ways you would rather have been out there on the racetrack. We'll see a lot more of the Ford Probe in the sprint races this year, but from a spectator standpoint this year, you're Sebring.
Well, it was a record fast race. You know, it was a record speed. It was also very safe, only 2 cautions, and I'm glad to hear all of you now praising Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd and all those Ford drivers that I just voted for and you guys shot down. But I was very heartwarming when I saw the checker drop, even though I was watching it from up here rather than from the car.
We are running out of time. Chris Economaki, Bill Hennessy, I know you guys had fun. Chris, I'm sorry, we ran fresh out of time. I've never had more fun on 3 legs in my entire life. We've just about wrapped it up here. A big day for Akin and company. The Sebring 12 Hours is history. You've seen it live on TBS Sports. Thanks for being with us.
A promotional fee and consideration paid by STP. For nearly 3 decades, America has been driving and winning with STP.
STP is the racer's edge.
And by Goodwrench. Mr. Goodwrench and General Motors Parts. No one knows your car better than Mr. Goodwrench. No one. And by Heuer. Tag Heuer, your partner today and tomorrow. In aviation, nautical sports, and motor racing, Tag Heuer's unsurpassed technical and styling skills provide the top range of watches and timers. Continuing